Welcome to Stuart Miller's first ever podcast. My name is Mohammed Zeb. I'm one of the directors at Stuart Miller Solicitors. The firm's been open for over 40 years and we've represented thousands and thousands of cases successfully. I've got my colleague, Kibla. Please introduce yourself.
Well, my name's Kibla. I'm actually just known by one name, a little bit like Prince. I think
whatever.
soon there'll just be a swiggle. But I've been in with the firm for well over 10 years now.
Yes.
Do you remember when we first met?
No, tell me.
So I was sat at Highbury Corner and I was sat on my laptop just outside the cells, and you walked past me and you did a double back and then you said something stupid.
That's something I wouldn't do, but
Do you remember what you said?
please tell me it was something nice.
No. You turned around and you said, "Why do you look like a politician?"
But you look like a politician now.
I don't think I look like a politician, but yeah, I take the compliment. Thank you very much.
Not a problem. I don't like politicians.
How did you get into the profession?
Me,
Yeah.
I'm a troublemaker. Honestly, I don't like authority. I'm anti-authority. And if anything, I wanted to be a defense lawyer, knowing that I could be good at my job, knowing I could be one of the best and work in a good reputable firm. I wanted to represent clients' interests to the best of my ability, and most importantly, simply be able to say, no, that's not the way, this is the correct way. Sounds odd, but that's just me.
Fair enough. I think part of the reason I went into law was because of that, but I was a little bit weird as a child.
Don't tell me that. I mean, I won't say you're weird. I mean,
Yeah.
it's okay.
I decided I wanted to be a lawyer when I was 14. I think I was at home watching, and this will tell you a little bit about my age, I guess. I was watching the O.J. Simpson case, but I was a child at the
But
time.
you were 14, man. People want to do other things at 14.
No, I think the O.J. Simpson case was a little bit more. Stop trying to make me older. And then I was watching the Louise Woodward case, which was a famous case about baby shaking.
Yes.
And I turned to my brother and I saw someone on TV and I said, "What is the role of that person?" And it was the Attorney General. And I just turned to him and said I was going to be the Attorney General. Of course, I was never going to become the Attorney General.
What do you mean nothing? You can't be the Attorney General. Of course you can be the Attorney
No,
General.
no.
Have high expectations, my friend.
No. We'll get to that. Probably one of the topics we'll cover on one of the podcasts.
Okay.
But I decided I wanted to be a lawyer at 14. And I think mainly because of where I grew up. So I grew up on a council estate in Kentish Town and then in Camden.
Don't say Kibla. I hate it when people say I've grown up on a council estate like Sadiq Khan. So what? You grew up somewhere, you had a house in a household. So what if you grew up on a council estate?
Okay, well, Sadiq Khan, I'm not going to give an opinion on.
My dad was a bus driver and what?
Yeah, but my dad wasn't a bus driver. So immigrant parents, of course. But I grew up on a council estate where pretty much 50% of the population were in trouble with the law or went to prison.
A very reputable estate then.
Yeah, very. And I grew up just hearing stories and seeing things which weren't quite correct. Remember when we grew up, racism was rife.
Yeah, I agree with that.
There was never a time when, even with the police, using the P word or the N word,
It came with the territory. It's
yeah,
kind
a
of
lot of the
generally
time.
kind of accepted, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, it was. And a lot of the people gave it back. But that's just what the time that we lived in.
I think the difference between me and you was I was generation kind of accept it, whereas you were generation no, kind of move on. We're not accepting this.
No, I think that came later. I think a lot of the time, when we were growing up, it was just accepted. I remember a time I was climbing with my brother on top of some sheds. We weren't doing anything wrong, and I remember
just climbing the sheds, of course.
Yeah, just climbing sheds. And I remember a police car came by, and then the officer called out and said, "All you P's, get down." But at the time, because we didn't know...
you comment and say, "I'm not a P, I'm a Bangladeshi"?
No, we didn't get into all of that. But because we were young and we were mouthy and it was kind of the accepted kind of thing to talk, we just called back and called him something, which I'm not going to repeat on camera. And then we just got on with things. But anyway, getting back to why. So you used to see a lot of that, saw a lot of injustice, saw a lot of people not having the representation that they wanted. We met a lot of lawyers actually who people met during the course of things, even during careers days and stuff like that. And none of the people represented the people that I grew up with. They didn't speak the language, the lingo, they didn't look the same.
Understand cultural divisions.
Exactly. I'm not saying that people can't, but it seemed to me there was an underrepresented
kind of void.
Yeah. And so I think that's why he went into law.
I mean, it's just funny you said that. I mean, careers opportunities at school. I remember I went to my careers interview in year 9, and it was a teacher, and he gave me this kind of mock application form to fill. And I put in there, I wanted to be a lawyer, and he ripped it up. So you're not going to be a lawyer. I said, why not? He says, your dad's a taxi driver. And I thought, my dad's not a taxi driver. My dad's a respectable.
Is that why you used it on me?
You know, isn't it? I've got to use these jokes on someone, isn't it? But anyway, coming back to it, look, it's in jest. I get it. People do come from backgrounds which are kind of underprivileged. But the only point I make is that shouldn't be a stopping point. You've got to move forward, have that drive, that determination, be different, set yourself apart from the rest. I mean, it is what it is, isn't it? That's why we're here today. We've moved on, put our past behind us, though we always remember our past and are trying to do something good for the community.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly the careers advice that we give people, and we tell people to come into law and not to let anything, stop you from...
Yeah.
Not even law, actually. I think the kind of careers advice I give to most people is, find something you're passionate about, find something that you love, and then make a go of it, because if you
Don't
work
delay.
hard and you put your effort into it, you can do it.
Mm-hmm.
But going back into the world of crime and talking about some of our cases.
Because it is a criminal defence firm we
Yeah.
represent, and when I say it's a criminal defence firm, we represent one of the largest criminal defence firms, and we're literally involved in every other major case there is up and down the country. I mean, it is what it is, isn't it?
It is what it is, and that's what happens when you're in the profession long enough, as we have been. But what I was going to ask you is, what would you say was your most memorable case?
Memorable comes in different categories. There's memorable, serious, funny, stressful.
Something that just pops up in your mind that you remember more than most things. It may not be the most serious.
No, I'm going to go with the most serious.
Okay.
And then I'll come back to the most funniest incidents as well. We were representing somebody who was involved in a conspiracy, terrorism related. And if this conspiracy had come to fruition, literally governments would have fallen. And I'm not just saying this, there's a BBC documentary on YouTube about it. It was the liquid bomb case. And I remember being at Paddington Green police station, and it was a warrant of further detention when the likes of Michael Mansfield, King's Counsel, Queen's Counsel, attended together with other SILs. And there was me. And I was kind of looked upon by some of the other co-defendants, thinking like, we've got a QC. And I thought, so what? I've been there for the past X amount of days. I know the case. Your QC doesn't. He's literally had 15 minutes to speak to you. When everybody applied when the police applied for the warrant of further detention, the least amount of days. So that was a memorable case for me. Don't ask me about the conclusion, but it was a memorable case.
Yeah, I can see why that would be memorable.
What about you?
I think mine is for different reasons. I think I remember cases which are unusual. So I think one of the first cases I ever came across when I was very junior, I went down to the local police station. It was a youngster, he was probably around 11 or 12 years old.
They are difficult cases, irrespective of the offence.
But this wasn't difficult. So he was about 11 or 12 years old. And so what people may not know is when you're of course you know this, but when you're a kid, when you're 17 or under, you have to have an appropriate adult with you.
Absolutely, yes.
So usually
Mum or dad,
mum or dad or a guardian or someone from the appropriate adult service. So this kid, his mum gets called to the police station. He's never been arrested before. But I just remember trying to hold my laughter in, and I was trying to be as professional as possible, because essentially he'd been arrested for having a wank outside in the park. I mean, there's more different terminology for it, but that's effectively what he was arrested for. A runner or somebody who was jogging on Hampstead Heath had seen him and called the police. Now imagine being his mum and coming down to the police station for the first time your kid's been arrested. They'd been arrested for...
Taken into age and the offence.
Well, no, the fact that it was those circumstances. But the reason why I remember it the most is because I remember seeing this kid and how young he looked. He looked more like he was 9 years old. So when I looked at him, one of the first questions that occurred to me, and as a lawyer you have to ask these questions, I just thought, how is this even possible? Because it doesn't even look like, to me anyway, that he'd reached the state of puberty that he could get an erection.
Don't say it.
I
get it. I get it.
So I turned to him and I asked him, I said, look, have you hit puberty? Can you do this?
Thank God it wasn't me at the station. Thank God I never dealt with it.
Legitimate question. I think he was so embarrassed because of his mum. So I remember afterwards, I think I said to him, actually very soon afterwards, I said to him, look, do you want me to ask mum to sit outside while I ask you some questions? But he seemed to be fine about it. I mean, he got NFA'd in the end, but it was just ridiculous because I had to ask him those questions and I just found it funny.
I mean, I get it. Look, each case is not the same. Some are more difficult than the other. Others are more probably embarrassing. I think an embarrassing point that happened to me was I was at the police station and I had an appropriate adult there for the clients. I don't know if anybody will remember this, but there was a TV program on at the time called Father Ted.
Yeah, I remember Father Ted.
He was an intoxicated,
funny program.
Yeah, intoxicated priest. Anyway, the appropriate adult happened to be a priest, and for whatever reason, I referred to him as Father Ted in the police interview, and he said, "Sorry, I'm not Father Ted." I mean, this was many years ago. It was 10 years plus, 15 years plus. I said, "So who's Father Ted then?" He goes, "That pisshead on TV." And we all started laughing, and for a brief second there, I mean, it kind of broke the ice and everybody kind of laughed, and then we got back down to business. I mean, mistakes do happen, doesn't it? I mean, you don't mean to do it, but it's just sometimes it's the most smallest of things which can kind of change the whole kind of perception case and kind of bring reality back to the forefront, isn't it?
Well, I think that's the best thing about this job, isn't it? The job is life experience. It is different people. It's meeting different characters.
Yeah.
Obviously, there are serious things that we're dealing with, but at the same time, you're dealing with human emotions.
Yes, absolutely.
Human beings, and there are funny things, there are weird things, there are so many different things that we've seen in our careers. I'm sure you agree with that.
No, come on, I'm saying it was.
But saying that, I mean, I've already said to you, I think in terms of funny moments that we've seen, I think I can just refer to something yesterday.
Go on.
So we've got a client in for murderer at this moment in time, and one of the co-defendants was giving evidence yesterday. When asked why he didn't call 999 or did he have the opportunity to call 999, he told the jury that he didn't know how to call 999. And then he told the jury that he thought calling 999 was an American thing. I had to stop myself from laughing.
I mean, clearly, different people are different, isn't it? I can see the funny side of it, and I can see where you're coming from, but when you're fighting for your life and you've got a jury impaneled, trials ongoing, you've got various silts there as well, King's Counsel as well.
Or when you're telling a lie.
Yeah, or when telling a lie. I get it. I mean, no one day is the same. I mean, just moving on from there, but on the final point, I think something I saw in court as well. This was a couple of years ago, and there was a chap, unrepresented. I was sat at the back of the court and just doing my paperwork, waiting for my case to be called on. And he was representing himself, and he was making an application to vary his bail conditions before an eminent district judge, now retired, one of the best judges I've actually ever come across. But anyway, so he's making this application and he's saying, look, it's Ramadan. It's the Muslim month of Ramadan, and he's observing Ramadan and he needs to go to mosque, therefore he can't comply with his curfew. And the judge kind of listened to him and then said, Mr. XYZ, Ramadan finished 2 weeks ago. At that stage, I kind of looked up, looked down, and I had a chuckle to myself. But yeah, strange and funny things, don't you? And it just makes that day go that little bit faster, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's wild how you didn't think that they would know that Ramadan was over. Anyway, what would you say was your biggest achievement today?
Professionally, to be in a team, and I'm not just saying it for the camera, to be in a team, to be associated with a firm which is known up and down the country, to be a director, to start from paralegal status, if not a photocopying assistant many, many years ago, to actually being at the forefront of criminal defence. For me, that's a very big achievement, because when I started my profession, again, you've touched upon racism, but I'm talking about racism within the field.
Okay.
I'm talking about, going to court and being called on last, and everybody else of a particular creed or colour gets on before you. Alternatively, the way you're being dealt with in court. These things happened in the past, but that's the past. Hopefully not today and not in the future. But if anything, today I can walk with my head held high anywhere in the country, go to any court, make a proper application and get the respect I deserve. And that's because of hard work or because of the team I'm with. What do you think?
Fair enough. I mean, in terms of achievements, achievements can be measured in various ways, I think. I think we, as lawyers, we can measure them in terms of results that we've had.
Yeah.
I think also you can measure them in terms of personal development. I think where I stand, I think the achievement for me was to become a lawyer.
Excellent.
I think, growing up, we all have them. I'm not saying that I'm any different to anybody else, but you have obstacles various things that happen along the way.
Yes, of course.
So, just becoming a lawyer was a massive achievement. And I think it's a massive achievement for anybody who gets there in any kind of field, actually. But more recently, I think, I never thought at any stage, and I've been completely honest here, I never thought at any stage that I would be leading a firm. I always thought, look...
Can I just say it's a pleasure working with you?
Thank you very much. That's very kind of you.
And I'm not just saying it for the camera. Those on the factory floor understand how busy and how hard it is. So working as a team, the word you used, there's some kind of form of congeniality.
I'm very humbled. Thank you very much for that. But what I was saying is this, that I never thought I would be leading a firm. I always thought I just wanted to be a lawyer. This is how much money I was going to make, and I'll just do this. I'll do my cases, and that'll be it. Going home. That was kind of the perception or the idea you have as a teenager, or even starting university. Then once you get into the field and you start practicing and you get into things, and of course you work hard and go things and you go places. I think for me the greatest achievement was obviously to get to top of a firm at a relatively young age, and to be able to lead a team of lawyers, but still carrying on as a lawyer, doing the everyday
factory floor work,
the everyday things, going to the magistrate's court, representing clients, doing the litigation, having the clients, whether it's murder, terrorism, whatever it is.
And if you actually look, speaking openly, okay, we both go to court, we both have a caseload, we both do managements together with other teams in the office. But I think that's what actually sets us apart, because we actually, as directors of a major law firm, go to court. We will represent those less fortunate, drug, alcohol dependent, mental health issues. There is no distinction in the service we provide. Agree with me? I mean, if you don't say it.
100%. I think that's what I've always liked about you, actually, when I first met you. Because actually, we'll get to that story about the first time I met you. But it's one of the first things I saw about when I met you. I'd always see you in court.
And then rushing off.
Yeah, rushing off. But at the time, I knew you were head of a law firm. So being head of a law firm at the time, and then I'm saying, well, he's here still representing, very low level offending, whereas, sometimes you don't see these people.
But then you'd see me at the Bailey.
Absolutely.
In London Crown Court, Southwark. And that's still today. And the reason why I say it sets us apart, and it's not just, for those listening, that's what actually makes a good lawyer.
Yeah,
I
agree.
Be there on factory floor.
I agree completely. But
even answering the phone call. The phones.
No,
forget going to the police station, forget going to court. Answering that phone out of hours. How many directors will do that? You tell me.
Yeah, it is a difficult part of the profession, and a lot of people don't see it. So a lot of people who might be watching this, for example, won't know it. But answering the telephone calls and taking the telephone calls, and the thing is, it's not just unique to us. It's unique to it applies to a lot of lawyers, and some lawyers are different to others. Mm-hmm. So some lawyers will always have their phone and always take it, but after a certain period of time, it does take its toll on you. So picking up that phone regularly, consistently.
And again, before it was just contact via telephone.
Yes.
Now we've got Facebook, social media, WhatsApp, Instagram.
Yep.
I mean, it just doesn't stop. I remember once, recently, I was at the police station and I got a call. So I just, that do not, or call you back later kind of message.
Yep.
For however the client did it, I just don't know how he did it. I got a call on Messenger. Same guy called me on Messenger. He said, could you call me please? And I'm thinking, text her, please let me finish, I'll call you back. So it's difficult, isn't it?
No, it's absolutely right, and a lot of people don't realise that actually the mediums involved, there was a time when somebody would go to court and you'd get a pager, or you'd call out of a phone box and then call back the office to see if there was any issues. Now you're always on emails. The emails are constantly 24 hours a day. You're getting inquiries via TikTok, inquiries via Instagram, inquiries via Facebook, inquiries via email, telephone inquiries, WhatsApp inquiries. So it's just...
I mean, we're fortunate, aren't we? I mean, we're a busy firm, and we're fortunate, and thank you for those who do contact us. But, we get inquiries literally all day, every day, literally every hour.
Yeah, 100%. But yeah, going back to remind me of when I first met you, I remember I was in Highbury Corner in the youth court side, and I knew who you were. Well, I'd heard of you.
You gave me, people know me.
Yeah, I'd heard of him. And then I saw you, and then you were talking, you're having a laugh with this kid here, then you were talking to somebody over there, and you came this side, and I was like, who is this guy? And I was sat there for maybe 10 seconds watching you. I wasn't watching you for too long. And then that's when I realized it was you. So, you know, I was impressed.
Okay, but look, seriously, look, that was many years ago, yes?
Yeah.
What's changed?
Nothing. Nothing has changed. Only
What's
you've got another person
Yes.
doing it.
And it's difficult. People
Yeah.
don't understand this. Look, you know, you go to court and you go to court, okay? Average 8 to 10 cases, minimum we have on a daily basis.
Yeah.
It could be anything. Early first hearings, warrants, special measures, sentencing, bail applications.
Yeah.
No one case is the same. And you've got to be on the ball. You've got to be ready. You've got to provide that service. And it's difficult, isn't it? So when people look at it thinking criminal defense lawyers and what do they know, it's probably easy. We know how hard it can be.
Well, it is hard, especially if you've got multiple clients in the magistrate's court. It becomes difficult because you're making bail applications, and so when you're making 2, 3, 4 bail applications, it's okay when you've got one. For example, like some of the lawyers that we see, they've got one, and so they put all their heart and energy into one application. But the thing is, where you've got 3 or 4, and I'm not saying it's unique to us. I know other people who do several cases at the same time, but to make the effort and putting all
To be different, innovative.
Yeah, to try and make the bail otherwise the bail applications all sound the
Same
same.
thing before the same district judges.
Yeah.
You've got to be different.
You've got to be different.
You
So
know?
when it actually makes you think that extra bit more, and it makes it that extra little bit more difficult because you have to be very different in your bail application. Of course, bail applications change because of personal circumstances. So it's a different person you're dealing with, a different offence.
Yeah.
But some of the submissions you do sometimes become very samey.
Look, I agree with you, but it's the world of criminal defence has also changed as well. It's more computer-based, online platform. You've got the common platform. And I see some of the more older solicitors struggling. I mean, they come to court, they've got to sign onto the online common platform.
Mm-hmm.
Some don't even have encrypted CGSM passwords, emails. Then they're asked to fill in, if your client's pleading not guilty, of course, or the matter's been sent to the Crown Court, a very detailed form. And you've got to do that whilst you're looking at the papers on one screen and then flicking over to another screen to get witness details and issues as well.
Yep.
I mean, it's difficult.
It's a lot in a very short space of time. I agree completely.
Out goes, brilliant solicitor who got the advanced information, Crown prosecution papers first thing on a Monday morning, and there it was in paper format. And in comes a digital PDF file.
Oh, but the thing is, you say that, but when it was paper files, you'd go to the magistrate's court. It was a godsend. It was really good.
Don't listen to him.
You would go in, go to the prosecution room. They'd give you a paper bundle of the papers. You'd go through. You could read them while you're going up the stairs, while you're in the lift. You could even go to the bog and read them while you were there.
That was you, not me in the bog.
But then you'd be able to read and be doing things a lot more quicker, and you'd do your attendance note in pen.
But you would agree, and I'm sure we've kind of come to it before we move on, that in modern day criminal defence, you've got to be computer savvy.
Yeah.
You've got to be on the ball, have the ability to deal with cases there and then, take proper instructions before you commit to an account or fill in a form.
Yeah, it's a lot to do with them in a short period of time because you've got to read the papers, take the instructions, analyse the case, draft your submissions or have an idea of what your submissions are going to be. And then, of course, you need to make, not sometimes, depending on how the client pleads, you have to make key decisions right there and then in the magistrate's court.
Look,
so you have to make which witnesses you're calling, what the issues are, and identifying them early because
speak to your client. With your client, you don't just make these decisions willy-nilly. You've got to sit with your client.
Yeah, absolutely. Take the instructions and then make the decisions. But some of those decisions are lawyer decisions.
Yeah.
Well, the client's not going to know because the client just provides you some instructions. So you need to decide who you're going to call, what witnesses you can possibly agree or get out because they don't help you so much. But all these decisions are made in a very short period of time, which is high pressure.
And you've got to do it because you're going to have a district judge or a strong bench who want to commit to pushing the case forward. There's no such thing as delays as it was back in the day. Please, miss, can I have 2.5 weeks to consider the papers?
That doesn't work anymore.
It doesn't, does it?
No, they don't. They very rarely grant adjournments, and the whole maxim behind the criminal justice system now is
speedy justice.
Delays are scandalous, as they call them.
And they're not our delays.
No.
I mean, moving on from there, I mean, you've heard about the courts crumbling and decaying. I mean, I remember there was a case, incident at court, I should say, yeah? I'm a duty solicitor. There's a blockage in Court 8, which is on the ground floor.
Yeah.
They've moved the custodies to the second floor. The lifts aren't working. So they expect me to go up flights of stairs, go back down to subground, read the papers, internet's not working, the Gov Wi-Fi is not working, and then get up. And the judge is asking me why you're not ready.
Yeah. We've seen that many times. Yeah.
You know what I mean? But nobody sees that part.
No.
Nobody sees that part
No
of
one
it.
sees that. I guess what I want to ask, because I think a lot of people want to know, we always see the kind of good side, but what would you say is the worst, because you and me both deal with murder cases. So what would you say was the worst case or the worst murder case you dealt with?
It's going to be different. I'm a London-based lawyer. I get a lot of cases in the Midlands and in the home counties. And it's usually, in this day and age, the demographics are kind of changes, isn't it? It's gang-related stuff.
Yeah.
It's standard murder. What are you looking at? I don't like your face. Boom, stab, kill. That's it, for nothing.
Yeah.
For me, it was different. Many years ago, I had a chap in custody. And police had gone to his home address after battery acid was thrown on the next door neighbour's door. Mm-hmm. And they followed the trail. And they knocked on his door, let him in, where's the acid? Wouldn't show it, started sweating. And they searched the property, there was a locked door to the basement. And they went downstairs and there was a naked body there. Woman, dead of course, chainsaw next to her. And this was old school. It went through to a charging decision and then it got to an old read-through at the magistrate's court, whether or not there was enough evidence for the matter to be sent to the Crown Court. The toxicologist and the pathologist concluded that they couldn't find what the cause of death was. So this chap had the murder withdrawn and subsequently charged with failing to disclose a dead body, or I think the charge was then criminal damage to the door. Got a mental health order. Fast forward 6 months. National news. Do not approach this person. Whatever you do not approach this person. Manhunt underway. And he was later implicated in a murder of, I think, 4 to 6 different women. He was the Camden Ripper. And I remember representing him on his initial arrest and him looking into me and saying, I'm getting off this. And he actually did. Don't ask me about the second set of offences, but that is something different.
Fair enough. I think I'm just going to focus on the word worst. So I've seen a lot of murders, and we tend to look at a lot of autopsy reports, and we see descriptions of people being stabbed, people being shot, and so on. I think the worst cases are always ones who involve the probably the vulnerable and the elderly.
Yes.
And you
as victims.
Yeah, as victims. And I think you will know which case I'm talking about. The worst murder case I've probably seen in my career is one that happened a few years back now, and it was in Tottenham. And a lot of people probably, if they hear the facts, they'll probably understand which one it was. But a guy breaks into an old lady's, and she's like in her 80s.
Yes.
And he breaks into her house, I think with the intention to burgle the house. But then he must have been, I think what the eventual conclusion was, that he was high on drugs and so on. But he eventually bludgeons the woman, the old lady, to death.
I remember this case.
And then rapes her, and then uses a blunt object to divide her body, and then eventually kills her. And I think reading it as a human being, as a son, as a grandson, you read something like that, it does.
It affects the person.
It does affect you, but in terms of worst murders, I think that was probably one of the worst ones I've ever seen.
And I remember that case, just coming back on that, because I went to the police station on it, and we dealt with it collectively at preparation stage, and the client was disgusted in himself. So much so, he actually pleaded guilty.
Eventually pleaded on the.
He had no excuse.
Yeah, eventually
and
pleaded at trial.
These kind of things actually affect us.
Yeah, no, because a lot of the time you've got to realise that we're still human beings.
Yeah.
So people might have a sort of perception of lawyers.
No.
Way we see it is everybody's entitled to have their defence and have their say, because it's not my case, it's not your case. It's they've got to say what they got to say. Yeah. We explain the evidence to them. We explain the pros and the cons and the strengths and the weaknesses, but ultimately the decision is there. So even we're dealing with this. I remember anybody who came across it. So whether it was people at the police station, people at the magistrate's court, people in the Crown Court, barristers we were trying to instruct on the case, everybody took a second thought before getting into the case. But a lot of the time, what people don't realise is a lot of the time you don't have a choice.
I get it, Kibla, but just moving on from there and how it's changed. I mean, many years ago we were dealing with some serious, hardened players, underworld figures, when it came to proper conspiracy, jewel thieves, armed robbers, gangland assassinations, and how it's changed of recent in the last 15 years, I'd say. This phenomenon of what you're looking at, stab, dead, murder. What you're looking at, kill, shoot, stab, little kids, and you're stood next to him or her, of course, and you're inciting, and it's joint enterprise.
Joint enterprise has been a big issue as of late, because we remember, we all remember being at school and somebody having a fight.
Yeah.
And you'd get in a crowd and somebody would have
fight,
or you'd be like, "I'll do this or do that." But up until recently, even now, a lot of the time, depending on what you do and what you say, you could have been joint enterprise if somebody punches the person ends up dying.
I mean, how many times do we read case papers where it says, bang him blood, shoot him blood, kill him blood? And the next thing you know, boom, in custody, incitement, joint enterprise. Yeah. And that's how simple it is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Life's changed.
Yeah, no, and that it's been a big problem, and we'll probably dedicate a whole podcast to joint enterprise, to be honest.
I mean, you first, sorry.
Sorry. But while we're on this, I think maybe it's a good time to kind of address some common misconceptions that people have of criminal defense or law or defense lawyers. Because what I tend to find, and I'll ask you a question in a second, but what you tend to find is a lot of people have a misconception of what lawyers are like and what we do. And I think we've gone into it a little bit already in terms of, what we do on a regular basis. But, a lot of the time people see a Harvey Specter on Suits, or they see the Lincoln lawyer. Matthew McConaughey plays a fantastic role in that. He did A Time to Kill, and then he did the Lincoln lawyer. You see these films, and then people have a misconception of what law is about and what lawyers are like. The first thing to distinguish, obviously, is that the American system and the English system is very, very different.
Two different systems.
But yeah, what would you say are the misconceptions?
Firstly, it's not all glamour.
Absolutely.
It's
very rarely glamour.
It's very hard work.
Yeah.
Compassion, dedication, late nights, neglect of family, personal life, and you've got to get on with it. This is a job 24/7, 365 days a year. It doesn't stop. Each inquiry case is as difficult, important as the next.
Yeah.
So when it comes to a misconception that I want to represent human rights, sorry, that's a different division. You're working in a criminal defense firm which deals with all matters of offences.
But you say human rights, but that's
a little paralegal that comes to me, or that third-year law student who's looking for that.
But that always annoys me, because here's why it annoys me. And just bear with me here. Someone says they want to do human rights. Isn't representing someone who's been charged for an offence and their liberties at stake human rights? Isn't somebody who's going to lose their house, say in a family court, isn't that human rights? Isn't somebody representing somebody who's before the local authority because they
isn't that human rights?
It's all human rights.
I get it, but I'm trying to give you the answer of that third year stroke, LP3 stroke, SQMP, whatever it's called in this day and age, who comes in for that interview and says, I want to represent human rights. You tell me, has that not happened in our interviews?
Of course it is, but that's why I've given you my take on it. When somebody says that, I say exactly what I've just said to you now.
Yeah.
I said, is that not human rights? So
where is the human rights of the person who got hit?
Well, the human rights is all over the place, isn't it? Whether you're prosecution, CPS, whether you're a local authority lawyer, whether you're a defence lawyer.
I mean, the misconception in relation to being a defence lawyer, that's what the question was.
Yeah.
Personally, look, the job's what you make it. As far as I'm concerned, I put in 100%. I live away from home during the week. I go back to the Midlands. Sometimes I don't go home back for the weekend. Sometimes my family come to see me. We kind of chop and chain and make that puzzle work. So when it comes to a misconception of I want to be a lawyer part-time, it don't work. It just doesn't work.
Yeah.
And that's me. That's my take on it.
I think just carrying on from that misconception, I think, the misconception is like I've obviously spoken about TV. I think there's this stark difference between what people think lawyers are like on TV and what they're supposed to be doing, and what the real life is like, which is what you've just said, in terms of like it's hard work, it's graft, it's sacrifices, which is what you said in terms of your family and your time. But it does make you laugh, because when you look at something like Harvey Specter on Suits, yes, he looks fantastic, he looks amazing, everybody loves him, but walking around with a piece of paper in your pocket and pulling it out.
Would you instruct him? Would you instruct him?
Hold on. It's not even about instructing him, but walking around with a piece of paper and then making some fantastic submission is not being a lawyer, right? He's never seen with a laptop. Sometimes he is in his desk, but where we are, our laptops are glued to us, our phones are glued to us. You're walking around.
I've got 2 laptops, by the way.
Exactly. Wherever you are, you're doing that because what do we always say? The best lawyers are the ones who prepare. So you have to prepare. You can't just walk in with pieces of paper and look all glamorous, and because you look fantastic, and you're a 10 out of 10 in terms of what people perceive. It does make you a good lawyer. So that's one misconception. The other misconception is that people think that we do it for money. Now, I can tell you, from my point of view, I'm sure you'll have your own view, nobody goes into law, or especially criminal defense, for money. I remember when I first went in there, I did it because I thought this is something I would be good at, this is something I'd get job satisfaction from, and thirdly, it's something that, I could see myself doing long term. Because I tried different things, like sitting in an office, and I thought, I can't sit here for 10 hours a day and all the rest of it. So there's a misconception that, people think that you do it for the money, but you don't do it for the money. Because if you think about law, and a lot of people won't know this, and I'm sure that, people will give their views, but when you talk about lawyers, you have your commercial lawyers who are right at the top end of the spectrum and earn huge amount of money, and you've got the legal aid lawyers who are all the way down here at the bottom. And I can assure you the money is nowhere similar.
But look, let's just stop there. Let's just dissect it a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay? Put your commercial lawyers to one side.
Yeah.
We are not commercial lawyers.
No.
We are legal aid lawyers. But you can instruct us on a private basis.
Yeah, of course you can.
When it comes to it, there's a different level of service per se in relation to private work, private instruction, and legal aid. But not much.
No.
Okay? So put that to one side. We represent everybody.
Yeah.
So we represent everybody from failing to send your children to school to the most biggest and serious cases in the country. We accept that the biggest and serious cases in the country generally pay by way of legal aid more than the smaller cases.
It's just the general nature of the way things work.
And that's how the legal aid structure is.
Yeah.
We as a firm take on every case. It's part of our criminal contract. We don't select, pick and choose our cases and give everybody the best service. But then you will have certain people, certain firms, only taking on the biggest work. How does that make you feel? Because before you answer that question, as far as I'm concerned, I will represent everybody because it's just the way I am and give them the best service.
No, I mean,
and some people do manipulate the system.
Yeah, but relating it back to misconceptions, there is a misconception, and I see your point there, that sometimes there's a misconception that people only take on certain amount of cases or certain types of cases. But with being a legal aid lawyer, what you do is you tend to take on anything and everything because you don't differentiate between a client or a case. And again, it is a misconception, and I think a lot of people might have that idea about lawyers.
Legal advice.
What about it? That's what we do.
Yeah, but some of the most common questions you get is the police stop me, can they stop me? Stop and search.
Okay.
Reasonable grounds. We all know that the police have to have reasonable grounds to stop and search.
Yeah.
They can't just stop you because at the end of the day they don't like the look of your face or based on a particular gender or background or creed.
Yeah.
There's got to be something reasonable, isn't it?
Yeah.
What is reasonable?
Well, the problem is reasonable comes down to whatever the officer, he or she, perceives. The perception. But it obviously has to be backed on something.
Previous dealings?
So they may have had, there's a report in the area, somebody matching a description and so on and so forth, or there may be a Section 60 in place, for example. Section 60 is basically, just for the viewers, it's put into certain areas. A notice is put in an area that anybody can be stopped for weapons.
Yeah, but hold on. For a Section 60 to be put into place, has it got to be imposed by a certain ranking officer?
Yeah, absolutely. But what I'm getting at is where reasonable grounds is required for stop and search, because we're talking about basic. Yeah. Because we can go on forever and ever. So when you're talking about basic common stuff that every day, PACE, the police.
The basic stop and search.
Yeah, Police Criminal and Evidence Act. That covers most of those things. So stop and search is what people need to realize is that it has to be based on reasonable grounds. They have to give the details of who they are, why they're stopping you, provide you with all those details, including their name and their rank, and they're supposed to give all those details to the individual when they're stopped and searched. Because what people don't tend to realize, and we've both had this, where clients get stopped on a regular basis, they get stopped once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, but because they're not asking for those slips and those records, they can never amount a challenge to say, well, actually, I'm being treated unfairly.
Racially profiled
Yeah.
or treated unfairly.
Yeah.
I mean, just coming back on it as well, I mean, what a lot of people don't seem to understand is there's no age bar to it, is there?
No.
You can be stopped and searched as long as the officer has reasonable grounds.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, there's a second limb to this. You touched upon it briefly. But if there's a court order in place, in certain situations, and if it's been imposed of an officer of a rank or a certain, I think it's superintendent or inspector, you don't need to have reasonable grounds.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why, but the officer should make it known to the person who they're searching, say, this is the reason, this is the power, and this is why I'm searching you. These are all part of a number of things. It's actually known as, these are a number of things that the officer needs to tell you when they're stopping and searching you. And so
under Section 60 or
no, just general. Even if it's a Section 60, they need to be telling you who they are, what the legislation is, why they're stopping you, and what they're stopping you for. So you have all those. But kind of the other things that we get on a regular basis, you have people, driving offences. So you get people, no license, no insurance,
erratic driving.
Yeah, driving, or giving the bird to somebody when you're driving, whether that amounts to a public order offence. Because people need to realise that, sometimes road rage is a thing.
Yeah.
And people do get cut up, people do get angry, people do get upset. But there's a distinction. So sometimes you can get upset and, honk your horn, or you got the other end of the scale where people get out and end up fighting.
Yeah.
But it's the grey area in between, which affects most people, is because people wonder, and they ask us on a regular basis, like, if I pull down my window and I say some expletives to somebody, am I guilty of an offence? Like, it all depends on, the language.
The language that's used, the manner in which it's done, and how
and
whether he perceived it, isn't it?
Yeah, and who else hears it. So
it's dangerous territory.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you could potentially lose your driving license.
Yeah, because if the DVLA get a hold of it, there is powers there that you can end up losing your license. Or the court does have power on any offence which involves
An offence.
Which involves a vehicle.
Yeah.
There is an ancillary power or discretionary power for the prosecution to ask for a disqualification.
I mean, we get this on a daily basis, just kind of moving off on a tangent. Your basic drug driving.
Yeah.
Drink driving.
Drink driving is massive.
And we know this, if the DVLA are tipped off, potentially your license can be revoked.
Yeah.
Because there's drugs in your system.
But they also, what they've been invoked, what people find out to their detriment afterwards, is even if you dealt with your criminal case and everything's done,
yes,
they inform the DVLA, and the DVLA then ask you for a drug test.
Medical check.
Medical checks.
You've got to pay for that.
Yeah, and if you don't do the check, or you don't come when they're supposed to come, or you test positive, they'll take your license away from you.
And how hard is it? I mean, how many times has somebody contacted us, please make me these representations, do something for me, it's like having my hand cut off.
And then they have to come back and book another medical appointment, have to be clean of the drugs and go for a test, and to come back to show they can get their license back. So sometimes the court and the disqualification is your least of your worries. But then, what else do we get? You get people asking us about people blocking their pavements, parking where you're not meant to park.
That's not a new phenomenon.
No, it's not.
I mean, we get it, and that usually leads to other offences as well. Damage to the car, threats being made to the person who's blocked the driveway, all over the fact that, look, somebody's blocked a driveway. I mean, it's very annoying. Come on. How would you like it if somebody
absolutely.
Blocks your drive, literally blocks your drive because they don't want to park on the road because of parking tickets or reservations or whatever it is. How would you feel?
Of course, I think we feel like anybody, which is why we get the questions that we get.
Is it illegal?
The fact is, it's not illegal.
Yeah.
That's the point. That's the point. I could go in now and park on somebody's drive, whilst I'd be trespassing. That's not a criminal offence. So you can't actually do anything about it. You can call the police, but the police will say it's a civil thing.
Yeah.
But then what?
That's if the police come out, by the way.
Yeah, if they come. No, of course, they're
busy.
They're busy, and they will say, "Well, there's nothing we can do."
Yeah.
Obviously, it causes massive inconvenience. Yeah. You might be blocked in. You can't go anywhere, so on and so forth. But then you touched upon it, that it actually leads to more offences because then, for example, if you're there and somebody's blocked your drive, people take it into their own hands. They might pick up the car or move it,
pick the car up, break the window, scratch the car, let the tyres down.
And then you end up with criminal damage, or people end up waiting for the person to come. They end up getting into an argument. Assaults occur.
We had a case just going into it. Stansted Airport, an airport just down the road from us. For whatever reason, client parked his car on a side road, I think a bus stop away from Stansted Airport. He then comes back and finds all 4 of his tyres been let down. And a note on the windscreen saying, "Pee off, don't park on this road again," with a smiley face, number 2.
Okay.
Client then goes and in his wisdom decides to let all the tyres down of
The car.
number 2, 92.
Yeah.
He's done for criminal damage and a whole number of public order offences. All because he parked legitimately on a road, but because the residents felt that he was taking advantage and not using the required parking, led to a whole multitude of different offences. This was, I think he was a merchant banker, city worker.
But this is what we're talking about. This is what happens, and we're talking about legal advice and general stuff. So, part of the kind of common things that we see on a regular basis, self-defense is one, for example. You see it on a regular basis. People get into situations where they're either encountering another individual, either they feel threatened in the position, or they're assaulted, and people often ask, what's reasonable for them to defend themselves. Now, we know there's 2 different things, isn't there? A preemptive strike is always a defense. So if you feel that you're about to be assaulted,
certain circumstances will justify a preemptive
of course,
strike.
There's loads of different things about it, but kind of the general principle is that you can strike before somebody hits you in anticipation of self-defense, and then you've got the other side where somebody is attacking you and you use self-defense, some force to stop them from doing it. But where people,
not only yourself, but another or the
property,
damage.
yeah, of course, yeah, of course, well remembered. But what we also have is, what people don't realize is the level of self-defense.
Reasonable.
We have people, so for example, like we have on multiple cases, how many times have we seen somebody, they're being assaulted, they've defended themselves and they're completely in the right, then they've got them on the floor and then they've kicked them in the head.
But, putting the kick to one side, how many times have we represented somebody where they've punched the person once over a silly dispute, person's fallen down, hit his head, dead, murder. Starts off as a murder, ends up as a manslaughter.
Yeah, we'll always end up with a manslaughter on one.
Question, is it reasonable? Was that one punch reasonable?
Well, self-defense is a legitimate defense to murder.
Yes. But if you're a professional boxer who knows how to box and you give somebody a right hook, knowing that the other person can't defend himself in that kind of capacity, is it reasonable?
Well, it comes down to what the jury think.
Yes. And that's case preparation.
Yeah. It's all about the circumstances, how you found yourself, what was happening at the time, and then what actually took place. So there's a number of different
Loads of different kind of stages to it as well. But it's not clear cut though.
No, of course it isn't. But other common defences that we're talking about, so we talked about driving, we've spoken about self-defense, we're talking about parking, road rage, we're talking about drug driving, excess alcohol, possession of drugs I think is another one. Most people think that it's okay to have weed.
Just coming back to that, but on multiple occasions, when it comes to possession of cannabis, I have the freeman of the land. I'm a freeman of the land. I'm entitled to smoke cannabis. And I don't care.
Yeah, freemen of the land are an interesting bunch of people.
And just coming back on the freemen of the land, and I'll deal with the possession of cannabis, but again at court, court 1, district judge calls me, please, duty solicitors want to deal with it. Can you deal with it? What's the issue? No insurance, no license. Okay, I'll help you fill in the PET form, the trial form. What's your defence? I'm a freeman of the land. I don't need insurance. It's all right, fine. Put it down on the PET form, and the judge, quite rightly so, said to the client in open court, if you plead guilty, it's £250. If you plead not guilty by way of a financial penalty, there's court costs as well, it'll be about 1,500, 600. What do you want to do? Client pleaded?
Guilty.
That was the end of it.
But just before you go on, so the viewers at home know, or whoever's watching this know, understand. So Freemen of the Land is this movement.
Mythical.
Yeah, it's this mythical movement, and you see a lot of YouTube videos on this where people will come to court and say that, well, they're not a part of society. They're not subject to the government and the rules, and therefore they're allowed to do what they want to do. They don't recognize the court. They don't want to give their names. They don't recognize authority. And we see it on a regular basis, don't we?
Yes, I mean, coming back to the name part, I had a freeman of the land who said in open court, it's all hearsay. He wasn't compres mentis at the time, and he was named XYZ, but he doesn't know, because he's a freeman of the land.
Yeah, so you may have seen these guys, but they do come to court and they cause a lot of problems because they don't want to recognize the law or that anything applies to them. But like you said, it's dealt with quite reasonably by a lot of judges who say, well, look, you can do this or you can do this.
That's a not guilty plea, put it down for trial, let's deal with that call. I mean, coming back to the cannabis aspect of it now, possessing cannabis. I mean, experienced lawyers, multiple people, different walks of life, from doctors to policemen, traffic wardens, teachers, possessing cannabis. Openly driving, walking, smoking. Over to you.
Look,
am I right or wrong?
No, you're absolutely right. You know, you'll see cannabis. I mean, we don't even need to say this from a lawyer's perspective. I think as individuals, as people, I think we all know, and you know, people watching this video will know that somebody knows somebody who smokes cannabis, and it's never the common misconception that it's just some 18-year-old
not at all
round a corner.
Yeah.
Right. You've got lots of different people, whether it's professionals, whether it's people who are responsible for, you know, incredible things in society. Yeah. It's something that people do recreationally.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's...
No, some do for medicinal purposes.
Of course. But the point is that a lot of people don't take it as seriously as they should. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people will come with misconceptions, and believe it or not, and I think you've seen this as well. People come to court and they say, well, I didn't know it was an offence. I knew I couldn't sell it, but I could smoke it. I'm like, well, where did you hear that? Because I watched it on TV.
And again, just coming back on it, possessing cannabis. Once admitted, you probably get a caution. If the officer's reasonable, they say, look, just throw it away, just leave it, allow it, it's not a problem. Discretionary based. Sometimes you'll get a caution. It comes to a point where you get charged. You come to court. It's a conviction.
Yep.
Once it's a conviction, or even when it's a caution, there's serious bars to this. For example,
100%.
You get a caution or a conviction. You're not getting into America.
Yep.
You apply for a position of responsibility and it comes up on your DBS, enhanced DBS check. Are you going to employ that person?
It becomes questionable because people start questioning why you have it. It all depends on obviously how long ago the conviction. But what you were saying, definitely in terms of travel.
Yeah.
In terms of travel, people don't realise that. Actually, going back further in terms of what you said, you know, you can have cannabis, and sometimes people will just, you know, depending on the officer, they'll just say, look, throw it away. They might give you a cannabis warning. So
turn a blind eye.
It's a warning. It's not even a caution. Then the other option is for you to be given a caution, which will stay on your record, but it's not a conviction. Then you end up in court with a conviction. Then what people will tend to do is, because they think it's just a very minor offence and they're just smoking cannabis is what they do, they end up coming to court again and again and again and again. And then, you know, you will eventually end up in prison.
Yes. I mean, just coming back on a point, it's people from all walks of life. I had a deputy head from a red brick university stroke school type thing, and he was therefore driving a motor vehicle with cannabis in his system. If he had got this conviction, he never took the conditional caution at the police station, he was going to lose his job. I literally had to mitigate to the best of my ability before a district judge to get him an absolute discharge. Mm-hmm. It saved his career, his mortgage, his job, wedding, income. All because he decided to sit in a car because his mate wanted a joint and he took a toke. And when the police came, whilst he was driving, of course, there was cannabis in his system. So in short, that's as serious as it gets. Kibla, and I'll come back to it. Let me have the final say, please. But what can you say to these young people coming up the ranks in terms of coming into not law per se? I mean, there's different areas, but criminal law.
Well, look, there's two aspects to it. People come from different walks of life, and we can never understand. No one can fully understand somebody else's position without walking in their shoes, as the saying goes. And there's a reason why people do different things, and it's not for us to judge, or it's not for us to kind of pass
point fingers,
fingers, or anything like that. But what I will say is, the life of crime is not worth it, right?
Leading a life of crime.
Yeah, leading a life of crime is not worth it. You know, you end up with convictions. You end up with, you know, how many clients that we've had years later who they're trying to make a life for themselves, but
Can't even get a mortgage.
yeah, but they've got problems because they can't got a mortgage, or they've got a confiscation
Yeah.
order, or they've got a conviction. They can't, they can't travel. All sorts of things which come back to haunt you. That's the first piece.
Yeah.
The second bit I wanted to say was being a criminal lawyer is job satisfaction for me. Okay, it is a lot of it's something, one of the very few jobs you can, and there are other jobs that people, but mostly when you work with people and you're helping people, which comes with a lot of job satisfaction. But the life of a lawyer doesn't come without hard work. And what the advice I give to most people, and I do a lot of these talks because I was a youth worker, as you know, for nearly a decade. You speak to youngsters and you will tell them, look, if you want to come and do anything, not just criminal law, you have to come with a vision. You have to come with the right attitude. You have to be able to work hard. Now, when I say work hard, a lot of people come to me and say, well, I've worked hard. And I always ask them, you will know within yourself whether you've worked hard or not. And my call on whether somebody works hard is, have you sacrificed anything? Mm-hmm. Have you not gone out with your friends because you wanted to do this? Or you've given up something, or having that moment outside with your friends, or going out having a drink, or whatever it is, because you've prioritized working on something in order to achieve. So you actually have to work hard, and actually work hard, which is the phrase I use. And you will know within your own heart and your own head whether you've done that. And working hard, having a vision, applying yourself will get you somewhere. That's my advice to everybody.
I'm slightly different, although you've stolen my thunder in relation to how to come to work and why you want to do it. If you're going to come into criminal law, the world of criminal law, in fact any law, but criminal law is what we're talking about, you have to have the ability to read, digest, and understand. There's the practical part about it. You're going to come in, you're going to work as a team. The team will show you hands-on as to what to do, where the letters are, how you prepare something, the training we give. But when it comes to the actual law, that's not something you learn on I think it's the LLB these days, the LLB, whatever it is, or whatever method of qualification is. There's a lot of reading to do, from grassroots down, from police station stage to magistrates to Crown Court, law, offences, defences, preparation. So if you're not willing to make that sacrifice in terms of going the extra mile, I mean, being a lawyer is the end result, but having an understanding of the laws, that's completely different, isn't it? That's forever evolving. You don't just get a badge and say, I'm a solicitor, and that's it, you stop learning. You've got to go the extra mile. So that's one. Secondly, you kind of touched upon it. You got to have that passion. You've got to want to understand, take people for who they are, not just a number, a file, and put 100% into every case.
I completely agree.
Yeah. And then finally, most importantly, whether you enjoy it or not, that's somebody's life. So make sure you hold it in proper regard and deliver. Because if you can't, don't do it. That's me.
And all I would add to that is, no matter what the result is, no matter what the result is, you have to be able to say and go home that night, that evening, whenever it is, and put your head down and think, I've done everything I possibly can for that person's life.
To get the correct result.
To get the correct result. Or to do the best you possibly can for the client. Regardless of whether the result, because the result isn't really based on you, it's based on a jury or a magistrate or whatever.
Yeah, but still.
But in order to come into this profession, to become a criminal lawyer specifically, and it applies to many other things as well, you have to be able to get to the stage where you can say, when you go home at night and you put your head down and say, I've done everything I possibly can for this client. And you can be happy with that. Yeah.
I mean, that was our first podcast.
Yes, it was.
Thank you for watching. Please do comment below. The future is definitely going to be green for us. There's going to be further podcasts. I mean, the lineup includes...
This is the first of many. We will be covering many, many topics, whether it's legal, whether giving you an opinion on many, many different things. But feel free to follow, subscribe, leave comments, but just join us and we'll try to keep you entertained.
Who are we going to try to get?
I think we'll probably try to get some barristers on board to have a chat.
Prosecutors,
former clients.
Youth offending team, ex-judges,
probation officers,
retired judges.
Yeah, so look out for them.